Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Ways and Means regularly scheduled meeting. I'm John Quincy, the chair, joined by Council Vice President Glidden, Council Members Bender and Johnson. I know Council Member Palmisano will be joining us soon, and Council Member Yang is attending to other city business today. So that we are a quorum, so we can go about doing the city's business today. Also, before we start, I just noticed Peter Ginder, our city attorney, is sitting down at that end of the hall, at that end of the table, and I guess this is the last time for you, Peter, in front of this committee. So Peter, of course, is going to be enjoying those retirement years starting February 26th or something. So go ahead, say something brilliant.
I'll reserve that for later.
Okay, he's going to reserve that for later, but obviously we will miss you greatly at the city and in particular in this committee. So thank you, Mr. Ginder. We'll begin today. I think we have a number of consent items that we'll run through real quickly, and then we'll be doing a public hearing. Let's see, do I have two public hearings? Is that right, Kelly? Okay.
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. So the consent items on the agenda. Include, from the attorney's office, a settlement workers' compensation claim. Number 5 is the Downtown Improvement District grant and amended agreement. Item number 6 is the legal services agreement with Rice, Michaels, and Walther. And item number 7 is a contract amendment with Restorative Justice Community Action for restorative justice services. The Convention Center brings forward number 8, which is a contract closeout with Premier Electrical Corporation for RGB lighting in exhibit halls. Community Planning and Economic Development is bringing forward an agreement extension between Hennepin County and the City of Minneapolis regarding the Office to End Homelessness. I see Mr. Beckman there. Thank you. Finance Property Services is bringing forward an acquisition and redevelopment of the Roof Depot properties for municipal operation purposes. This has 4 actions associated with that. Item number 11 is the bond issuance for Target Center renovation project. Item number 12 is from Human Resources, the contract amendments for DRI consulting, management, assessment services. Information Technology is bringing forward a number of items. 13 is the IT gift acceptance for March 2016 SharePoint Fest Technology Conference. 14 is the contract for Aramosa for the Public Works Laboratory and Operations Data Systems software. Item number 15 is the issuance of a request for proposal for citation issuance and management systems. Item number 16 is a contract amendment with EMA, Maximo Asset Management Software. Item number 17 are IT contracts with Arete, Cloud Sherpas, and Integrithm for ServiceNow application expansion service. Mayor's Office bringing forward a contract extension for the Mayor's Office Interim Communications Director. Excuse me, from the Community Development Regulatory Services Committee, we have a land sale for Greenhorn Homes North Round 5. The, data use agreement with Minnesota Hospital Association, a contract amendment with Next Gen Healthcare for the school-based clinic program. Item number 22 is a contract amendment with Stair Step Foundation for National Diabetes Prevention classes. Item number 23 is a contract amendment with Wetland Habitat Restorations for community engagement. Item number 24 is a contract with Tree Trust and Wetland Habitat Restorations for tree planting services. From Public Safety and Civil Rights, we also have a community solar subscription agreement with DG Minnesota CSG5 LLC for Solarstone Community LLC, United States Solar Corporation, and Sunrise Community Solar. From Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee, we have a contract with the University of Minnesota for Police Department to provide bomb detection services at TCF Stadium for large-scale events during the 2016 calendar year. Contract with the University of Minnesota for Police Department to provide extra security and tactical response at TCF Stadium. contract with Taser International for the purchase of body-worn camera equipment and video storage solution. I think we'll pull that for some discussion because we're going to have a staff direction, some other conversation on that item. So we'll pull that off for now. Transportation and Public Works Committee is bringing forth the 9th Street and Kenny area residential street resurfacing projects, a bid for large diameter sanitary sewer cleaning. And those are the consent items. So for all those consent items, with the exception of item number 28, any questions or comments? Councilmember Johnson, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to have item 10 pulled for separate discussion and vote.
Which item is that?
That's on the roof depot site.
I'm sorry.
The roof depot site?
Oh, the roof depot. Okay. We'll pull that off for later discussion then. Those items on the consent agenda, except for item number 10 and 28. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Those items carry. We'll come back to those two items, but we're going to deal with the public hearings first on that, and then the presentation. So the first public hearing is from Finance Property Services. This is on a land sale. And there you are. Welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Quincy and council members. Item 1 that you have before you is the proposed sale of 818.5 25th Avenue South. It's a piece of excess land that we got from MnDOT, and the adjacent owner at 2517 Riverside Avenue, which is the Tesoro gas station, has requested to buy it. It's approximately 2,000 square feet, zone C1, and they intend to use it as green space adjacent to their gas station. We set the price at $6,000, which roughly $3 a square foot, and they agreed to pay that plus all transaction costs. And we request that you hold a public hearing, and if you deem it preferable, to approve this proposed sale.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation. Any questions for staff on that? Not seeing any. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to talk to that item? Anyone? Anyone? Not seeing any. We'll close the public hearing, and I'll move approval of that item for the land sale. Any questions? Council committee members? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? That item carries. Thank you very much. Now we have a public hearing for the Minnesota Investment Fund loan application. Hi, Casey.
Councilmember.
I'm never going to pronounce your
That's okay. Name. Casey works. So, good afternoon, Councilmember Quincy, members of the committee. Before you today is a request to authorize the city to submit an application to DEED, the state, for their Minnesota Investment Fund loan program. And this would be a grant from the state. And then the city would then make a loan to Jack Link's Beef Jerky for their expansion project in the Block E, so now Mayo Clinic Square building. The company currently has, I think, around 150 jobs downtown, and they would be taking over roughly 75,000 square feet on the second floor and the first floor, and they're projected to add 85 jobs over the next 2 years, and that would be committed via the loan. And if they do meet those goals, then the loan to the company would be forgiven once they hit that target. So we already actually, their current location in the warehouse district, we have a prior MIF loan with that company, and they are on track to meet the goals. That's a $100,000 loan, and that once they meet those goals, that loan ends in March. So that loan would be forgiven, and then this would be a new loan. The projections are for a $14 million expansion, which includes the build out of the Mayo Clinic Square space and then their purchase of FF&E. So this, the state, as part of our application, requires a public hearing and then the council to pass a resolution of support for the project. So happy to answer any questions. And I know Steve Frey from Jack Link's is here and has like to say a few words as well.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, this is just an application to DEED.
So
right?
What we're requesting is the city to authorizing us to submit an application and then subject to receiving or deed approving it, then we're requesting that we can accept the funds and then make a loan to the company with those state funds.
Terrific. Great. Thank you very much for that. I imagine we'll get to hear from the representative from Jack Links as part of the public hearing process, but we're very excited to have that expansion in the business in our city. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions before we get to the public hearing portion? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Open the public hearing for this and hope to hear from the representative from Jack Links. That'd be terrific. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Steve Frey. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Jack Links. And on behalf of Jack and Troy Link, the owners of Jack Links, we couldn't be more excited about the expansion into Minneapolis. We have currently 150 team members in the warehouse district in Minneapolis and anticipate that will double over 5 years. While Casey has addressed 85 of those positions, we anticipate that the growth of the company as the dominant global leader of beef jerky, as the case is, we anticipate that we'll double our team members in Minneapolis over the coming years. We announced that to our team this morning. They couldn't be more excited. Applause, high fives, as you would expect from a beef jerky company this morning. And on behalf of that organization, again, we'd like to thank the city council, and CPED for their support of our vision and of their vision.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For being present today. It's very exciting for the city of Minneapolis to have you as a growing member of our community, and the work that you've done in Mayo Clinic in the retail space there has just been outstanding. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this item in the public hearing? Anyone? Anyone? Not seeing anybody. Thank you very much. I'll close the public hearing, and we have a comment from Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's pretty exceptional for me to go off topic, but I just want to say I'm a big fan of your beef jerky. And thank you for making it and being in Minneapolis. And I look forward to, as you continue to expand with different flavors and offerings. Thanks.
I don't think that's going off topic at all. I think it's terrific. And you're not the only one who loves the beef jerky. So thank you. Not seeing any further questions from council members. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. And opposed, that item carries. Thank you very much. We have a presentation next. This is from Bruce Plant, our city treasurer, and implementation of the pay card option for paying city employees.
All right, as it gets set up here. Nothing ever moves as quick as you'd like, does it? Sorry about this. Well, I'll just start out by saying good afternoon, committee chair and council members. I am Bruce Plant, the city treasurer, and I'm here today to give you an update on a voluntary program we're proposing for our employees to get paid and to ask for your support. I'm joined today by several people who helped me with this program: the city's cash manager, Larry Parker, and Wells Fargo representatives James Mulrooney and Anita Wolf. I want to thank them all for being here today and for their help in moving this program forward for our employees. All right, now if I can get my presentation, huh? I do. It's not recognized. I apologize for this. Yes. Well, I'll start off with just kind of explaining a little bit about what is the employee pay card. As I mentioned earlier, the pay card is a voluntary program for the electronic payment of our employees. Over 95% of our employees currently are paid electronically via direct deposit. I don't want to replace direct deposit. That's still our preferred method. However, for those who don't use direct deposit, I would like to convert them from paper checks today to an electronic payment method. A key reason they receive paper checks today is that they are usually unbanked or underbanked employees, and the pay card provides a solution to that. I guess taking a look at our history on this project, as you may recall, we selected our vendor, Wells Fargo, to provide this service last year as part of the banking services contract. Wells Fargo provided the best overall combination of service and value to the city, and in this product in particular, they had the best distribution of branch and ATM locations throughout the city. Taking a look at our objectives for this product and program, we wanted to be clear about our objectives, including targeting, improving things for our unbanked and underbanked employees. We currently issue about 300 paper checks per pay period today. However, with the influx of the temporary park board workers starting in late April each year, that number swells to 1,500 to 2,000 paper checks. We also have summer interns that would benefit from this product. If a problem were to occur with my ability to generate paper checks today, I do not have a good solution to pay this population. With the implementation of a pay card, I will have a solution. Thank you. Taking a look at the pay card benefits, a couple other cardholder benefits that I'd like to highlight are protection from loss or theft, no check cashing fees. Without a banking relationship today, paper checks can cost upwards to 30% to cash a check. Unlike a checking account, pay card accounts cannot be over withdrawn, and it could provide a gateway to further banking services down the road. Benefits to the city other than what I've listed here, I wanted to mention we also avoid escheatment, since I know how much Chair Quincy likes it when I use that word, especially in the chambers. And for those unfamiliar with what that term means, it's the process by which we deal with unclaimed property. So paychecks that we can't get cashed or that people aren't cashing and we can't, after an extended period of time, follow up and find out what we need to do. We get those funds to the state and then they deal with it on our behalf. In general, on this slide, I just wanted you to see that we have a controlled process for distributing the cards. And here's a sample of what the card will look like. It works just like a debit ATM card does that most of us are familiar with. Yeah, I think it looks cooler than a paycheck, and it works in conjunction with a smartphone as well. You can link that to your smartphone, which I think will be extremely nice for the younger population especially, who looks for those sort of things. Taking a look, in most cases, access to the pay by the employee cardholder will be free. However, we stress and will stress to these employees that just like any relationship with a bank, there are circumstances where fees will apply. These are the most common fees, and generally they only occur after one free transaction per period. As far as the city's cost, they will be more than offset by the administrative savings that we will generate through this program. And we have set up a website for employees to get further details, as you can see here. And I would want to thank you for your time, and I stand ready to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Plant. Are there any questions for Mr. Plant? Not seeing any of that. I think this is a great innovation, so thank you for bringing that forward. I know other cities have done this in Minnesota, and we're catching up to them, but it won't be long. And it'd be particularly when you have park board employees. How many of those are seasonal young people that don't have access to a checking account? this is a great alternative for them and provides extra security for them as well. So in case they lose that piece of paper, they won't have to have that option. So it'll be really, really convenient. That's a great innovation. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Not seeing any. Good. This is just as a receive and file, as I understand, just a presentation. So with that, I'll move to receive and file. Any comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
Great. Let's go to the item number 10, I believe it was. This is related to the roof depot. Councilmember Johnson, you had a specific question, or what would you like to do?
Mr. Chair, I'll defer. I see we're joined by the council member representing that ward. And then I'd like to say a few words afterwards.
Sure. I assume, Mr. Goki, if you could join us at the podium, probably address some of those questions. Okay. Mr. Goki, before we get to specific questions, maybe you could run through the RCA that you've submitted here and what the steps are.
Okay, Greg Goki, Director of Property Services, Councilmember Quincy as Chair and committee members. We've reached agreement on the terms and conditions for acquisition of the property. The $6.8 million represents the city's appraised value for the property, which was lower than the owner's appraised value, in which both were done in summer of 2014. We anticipate closing on or before July 1st of this year. And as per previous council direction, we do plan on working with the East Phillips community and the development community, as well as our facility space and asset management committee, on how to best utilize the site long-term for not only municipal operations, but the potential for possibilities with development and community desires in that part of our city. As we move forward, I've also asked that we make a distinguishing statement on this project. Our city council in previous years has adopted LEED Silver as a standard of quality for our new facilities. On our previous Hiawatha maintenance facility to the north of this campus, we did achieve a platinum level. Since then, the LEED standards by the U.S. Green Building Council have been revised, and with preliminary look at my office, we don't believe platinum is achievable in the future, so we're recommending gold, which is higher than your previous direction for all of our projects. So we're asked that you make recommendation and approve that as well as part of this process. So we know when we go forward and issue an RFP for design services, that it's clear to the design community the type and quality of building that we're looking for as an end result of this project. Also, as part of this, we do want to go ahead and hire an independent commissioning consultant for this project that will help us ensure that the owner's requirements are met in the design process, as well as construction and quality control at the end of the project. And we also do recommend this project be certified by the U.S. Green Building Council as a proof of the quality and commitment the city is making on this project.
Great. Thank you very much. So there are basically 4 actions here. One is the approval of the acquisition, which just follows up the previous direction we had to negotiate. We got the better deal. So thank you for that. And then we have the redevelopment to be gold level standard, and then authorizing RFPs for the architecture and engineering services, and then RFP for the lead commissioning services. Tell me, when would we be taking on, once an RFP goes out for the architectural and engineering services, when would that occur?
Well, Committee Chairman Quincy, I'm going to answer that in general. With the gold commitment from the council, assuming you're going to pursue that, we'll need to draft an RFP. We do have program requirements already kind of thought out. So I would expect we would be back at the PRC for their review and approval, probably about 2 cycles,
Okay,
and then issuing sometime early April, and probably having somebody on board yet this early summer yet, probably about the time of closing.
okay. And that's, closing is by July 1, so
Yes.
we'll be taking other actions at this committee and at the council level about those RFPs?
That is correct, Chairman Quincy. We'll be coming back with the recommended design firms and commissioning firms for your review and approval.
Good, thank you very much. Councilmember Cano, I know you had some comments on this, so feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this property acquisition, as many folks know, was heavily opposed by the residents of this racially concentrated area of poverty. Immigrant families, Latino families, the neighborhood association, a lot of the folks who care about environmental justice and sustainability did not believe that this was the right decision. And I, as the council member of that area, also did not believe that was the right decision. I was not supported by my council colleagues to prevent this purchase from happening. And although the community has different hopes and dreams for this area, and we had been working on them diligently over the last 2 years, and I'm just speaking as a council member who began here 2 years ago, although I fully acknowledge that that work of environmental justice and sustainability for an area that is considered an overburdened area where multiple vulnerabilities connect to put a lot of these families at risk of negative health impacts, low educational outcomes, certainly challenges in the economic opportunities areas. All of that work has been happening for many years, and it's actually been supported a lot by other legislators in the area who have been there much longer than I have, such as State Representative Karen Clark and Senator Torres Ray, who showed up early on in our green zones discussions and conversations in that neighborhood. So it is disappointing to see that this is, going to continue to move forward without the support that I think that the city needed to get from the community. I understand and acknowledge where we are today in this particular point in time, in this juncture of this decision, and I have engaged with the city staff and have had conversations with Greg on numerous occasions about the type of concrete and solid action that the city really needs to continue to entertain and to hopefully demonstrate moving forward to really make this a partnership with the community residents who are living there. As you can see, we have some photos that have been put up in our room, in our council chambers here, that show the traffic in this area, particularly heavy truck traffic, which is already a challenge for the bikers in the area, the bicyclists who use 28th Street quite regularly, the connections that we have to the Greenway and to the light rail. And so as a transit-oriented development site, which is what I believe this site is and what the community members understand this community site to be as an asset that could really provide a new and different vision for green industrial businesses, for green business development, for green jobs creation. It's a difficult pill to swallow to see this coming forward today, but I am going to be here for another 2 years, and I want to make sure that those 2 years are productive in working on this project to ensure that the community's voice and desire continues to be at the forefront of this development project that the city is very much involved with and driving. I believe that that should give our residents more of a voice in the process, and I'm hopeful that we can continue to have those conversations. And I know that residents have reached out to me today asking if there's any way to amend this motion. So I will be looking at potential amendments leading up to the council meeting on Friday. I don't sit on this committee, so I can't propose anything at the moment, and I don't feel it's fair to ask my colleagues to do this work for me. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the history of this project, to acknowledge the community's desires and needs for this area, and to say that I'm willing to continue to work on this for the next 2 years, at the very least, until our re-election cycle. So thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll and you can actually sit down, Mr. Koki.
That's
I don't
okay.
need to ask
Standing's
any
good for your
questions on this. All right. So, and I'll put aside, putting aside my previous comments and sentiment on this project, I wanted to address the specific vote today that's before us. Also recognize, too, that we have very, very talented staff. And if I had anybody negotiating on my behalf, I'm glad we have the staff that we do. They do a great job. I will not be supporting this today specifically because it is my understanding that one of the pieces of our strategy that was very thoroughly considered was around eminent domain. There's definitely a time and a place for that. Certainly on the Nicollet Avenue reopening, I would be very open to something like that because it supports public infrastructure that everyone can use. However, this public facility, my understanding is that this site is nice to have, not a need to have, that there were other options. Sure, there are operational advantages for this site. There are cost savings associated with this site. And so, again, it wasn't a necessary piece. So when a private landowner is in negotiations and we're not getting anywhere, I have serious concerns about considering eminent domain as a tactic to essentially intimidate them to negotiate with us, is how it feels like to me. So that's why I'm not supporting this particular item, and I appreciate the chair willing to pull this off for some discussion and a separate vote, but we don't need to do a roll call or anything like that. And I also want to thank staff too, and my colleagues who have brought forward the effort to work with the community on development. And I'm excited to see the LEED certification in here. And so that's a great part of it as well. I appreciate the work that went into it and the thought.
Thank you. Council Vice President.
I want to make sure I kind of put in a clarification, and this may have been what you meant, Councilmember Johnson, but which is that if an eminent domain strategy was utilized, the council would be required to authorize using that strategy, and we did not do that. And so I just want to make sure for those who are watching this is that eminent domain was not utilized, and the council never received a formal request to authorize that, and we did not authorize that. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because there's a lot of sensitivity around eminent domain and usage, and including with policymakers and staff on kind of how that tool is used. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that clarification. I was about to ask Mr. Goki to clarify that, but I think that is well covered. So thank you. You'd like to? Oh, okay. Sure. Go ahead, Councilmember Connell.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the public record that the way that this was presented to me is that city staff were planning to bring forward an eminent domain request to the council, and understanding that this project had already been approved by a majority vote, that the votes for an eminent domain measure would have likely existed. And so that message was definitely in the community, and we know that conversations happened with the owner around the eminent domain threat, which forced him to come back to the table to negotiate a sale price instead of being forced to sell. That's my understanding of the conversations, and that is, to be quite transparent with my colleagues, that is a conversation that I've been having with my residents about the potential ways that this eminent domain discussion could have folded out in the council process.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that item carries. Thank you very much. And we have the one final item here. This is about the body cams, face body cameras. This is item number 28. I'll yield to Councilmember Palmisano for leading off the discussion.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I don't know, do we want to move the motion before us?
Yeah, let me do that. If I could move item number 28 on the agenda, which is a contract with Taser International for the purchase of body-worn camera equipment and video storage solution.
Super. Mr. Chair and colleagues, I wanted to provide a little bit of context around, I did support, it was unanimous, the support for allocating this $4 million, taking that action at public safety last week. Before you is an additional motion that Councilmember Yang and I have developed since that time. I've worked a little bit with you, Chair Quincy, on making it something amenable. Our work effort on body cameras really began last year. Before that, if you're part of the police department like Deputy Chief Glampy, in my role as chair of audit, I've been especially close to this effort, both with the police department and also with our city clerk's office. Between the body camera consultation that was requested by the police department and the records management audit, which we'll all hear more about in the coming weeks, our city learned what it would actually take to scope a body camera program. Last week in public safety, I expressed some concerns about this, but I was less sure what the best action to take would be. Since then, I've done a great deal of looking into it, and before you is that motion. This motion acknowledges that with a $4 million investment in body cameras, we have and we will retain a very public commitment to achieve the transparency and the accountability that we promised along with that program. Where I have found the biggest gap in being able to service body camera requests has been in the records information unit. We have a growing backlog of work in that unit, and I know we can all acknowledge that this is a way to help us get ahead of that curve and to be responsive to future body camera requests. I want to acknowledge that the number of managed public data requests in the past 4 years has increased by 400%, and that's without having any body cameras. So there are very real reasons why we've gotten a little bit behind in this work. Another thing that we should acknowledge that our records information unit has been doing since, I believe, last July is expungement requests that have taken on a whole new load of work that we want to be especially responsive to with that new legislation. So what I have before you is an acknowledgement to help the city clerk's office and the Minneapolis Police Department work together to really put a public face on this body camera program, both in helping people who come in to request data. It uses extra money not extra money, but money that we haven't yet used in previously allocated funds to help get additional resources in to the records information unit. And it asks our police department finance to recommend necessary FTE positions for this department in the future. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Also here, 4 questions might be appropriately directed to Robin McPherson from Police Finance or Christian Rummelhoff from Records Management.
Good. Thank you very much, Councilmember Palmisano. For the staff direction question, is that moved as an amendment?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to move this as an amendment.
Great. And we have Council Vice President Glidden.
Okay, thank you. And first of all, I want to say I appreciate what you're trying to address with this amendment, but I want to make sure we kind of take a step back, and I want to invite up Robin, please, or whoever would be the best person, maybe Deputy Chief Glampy. I just want to make sure I'm getting first a good background in refreshing us on what already was appropriated within existing resources and within the last year's budget, or the 2016 budget, to address these issues, and how you are currently analyzing how your resources will be able to accommodate the data practices issues, because again, this kind of gets more to continued cost analysis, and as well as what type of program we need to have and want to have to assess these things. And then I might go back and ask some questions that are a little bit more specific to what's in the motion. And then, do you have a copy of the motion? No. So I might just ask too that staff be able to take a look at the motion so that they are having that in front of them as we're talking.
Ms. McPherson.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, council members, I think we're going to make this a two-part question, if you don't mind. I'll talk about first what's included in the budget for 2016, and then DC Glampy will talk about the program itself and anticipated needs. As far as the 2016 budget, there is $1.8 million in the Minneapolis Police Department budget for the body cameras specifically. That is made up of $600,000 for that was received through the federal grant that we applied for last year, $600,000 for the CARS program, $400,000 that was allocated by the mayor in the mayor's budget for additional general funds, and then 2 FTEs, which came to a total of $170,000. So the sum total in the budget is actually $1.77 thousand within the budget itself. With the current what we've projected in public safety, the actual cost for the first year we're estimating at $1.65 million, and that includes the two FTEs for this. So it's below what is in our budget for 2016. Again, these are estimates.
Okay.
Deputy Chief.
And Mr. Chair, Vice President, to speak to what we're doing currently, right now as the program goes, we're in a bit of a hiatus since we ended and we're getting ready to gear back up. We have one person dedicated to doing, actually 1.5 FTEs dedicated to doing body cam redaction work and data practice work, along with everything else that they do for the records unit. So we don't have somebody specifically right now dedicated to just body cameras. The plan going forward is to have those two bodies doing nothing but body camera work going forward once the plan gets up and we get these folks hired.
Okay, because you haven't yet hired the 2 positions that were allocated in the 2016 budget.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly the direct. We're actually in the process of hiring them right now. So hopefully the goal is when the body cameras come online in May, these folks are ready to go and we can hit the ground running with those 2 bodies.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think I have a couple of questions that are maybe to the author a little bit and maybe to staff as well. But your motion would anticipate adding 2 staff in addition to the 2 staff that are yet to be hired by the police department that will be dedicated. So I just want to make sure first I have clarity with what you're seeking.
So yes, the 2 people that are the video analysts, this isn't actually part of that kind of work. This is to help the Records Information Unit deal with the managed public data requests, right? So a specific public data request that would be appropriate for a video analyst, my understanding is, would say, I need this point to this point for the specific officer for the specific footage.
Pulling data, you're saying, from the video.
That would be the video analyst position, right? The Record Information Unit does manages public data requests in something that would be like, give me all public information about X incident or Y incident, right? And so that involves police reports, that involves a coordination of different kinds of information. That is what we are getting so very far behind in the Records Information Unit. And that's where I see a need to supplement that, because we will work in coordination with our city clerk's office. 1 in 6 requests into the city clerk's office have to deal with police requests, and with that, the group that is ultimately accountable, the city clerk's office, can only work with the Records Information Unit in helping to prepare that. I'm happy to ask Christian Romelhoff to come
Right. So this is where I'm getting a little bit tangled up in, is this really a capacity issue for the police department and their role in managing data requests, or is this part of a capacity issue for the city clerk's office as the central coordinating point for ensuring data requests are properly responded to and recording all of that? So I'm getting a little tangled, and I also feel like we're a little bit deep adhere into talking about the particulars of who does what, which may be more needing to get a staff proposal to us on what are those particulars and how would they be accomplished and what would be needed with additional staff resources, and how would we assess are those additional staff resources needed and when?
If I may ask Christian Rummelhoff to provide some context of that. I originally started this with the city clerk's office in mind, and it's come up in this way. Mr. Rummelhoff.
Mr. Rummelhoff, please.
Commissioner Quincy, council members. Thank you. So as I understand it, the proposed staff direction is looking for bodies to go into the police department, not the city clerk's office. The city clerk's office plays a role where the city clerk is a responsible authority charged with managing public data requests, also charged with acting as sort of an ombudsman when requesters need additional help or have problems with how the city is responding. So we work very closely with all departments, but especially with the police department. The police department received one of the largest number of data requests of any departments. So we work in close coordination. The Police Records Information Management or Records Information Unit, that's the department that handles, just as Councilmember Palmisano said, handles these complex requests that come in. They need some research. There can be transactional pieces such as simply printing and providing a report. There can be some investigation that needs to be done. So for example, even a simple accident where there's a report may involve squad cameras or street cameras. It may involve digging into what the police report says so they can find additional information. That's the unit that has a significant backlog. And where the clerk's office intersects with them is both helping direct requests to them, but also in handling questions and concerns from the public when timing or the data responsiveness complaints come up. They come to the city clerk, and then we work with the police to resolve the complaints. So that's largely our role. The additional 2 FTEs in the Records Information Unit would, my understanding, is largely address the current backlog. We work with in a business process improvement piece. We worked with the police in September. We identified there's about 100 hours of work each week that are not being accomplished. There's simply backlog because of the increase of work. In 2015, January 1st, second chance law moved expungements to become much easier. That greatly increased the expungement piece for that unit. As Councilmember Palmisano said, 400% increase over the last 4 years in requests.
So this sounds like I'm going to turn then to a question that's probably a little bit more for Deputy Chief and then also for Councilmember Palmisano. I'll just say from your presentation, Mr. Rummelhoff, it kind of sounds like these are 2 positions, not for body camera work, which hasn't started yet, but for existing work within the department where there may be some backlog issues, because that's what you said, backlog, and there's no backlog on body cams because they're not in use yet. So I just want to say that might be a change to the language in the staff direction, because this does talk about staff positions that are specific to supporting the work around body cameras. And I just want to make sure if that's not where the need is, if there is a need, then we have enough flexibility to allow coverage to meet the need. And so maybe that's something to respond to. And then I'll just state a comment that's more of a philosophy on approach here. So I'm open to understanding, are there needs in the department that we're not sufficiently resourcing that kind of relate to requirements of the city to respond to data practices requests. But I do think we want to save any language about ongoing until we have our budget discussion. So to me, this is a conversation for me to be able to support it about how do we identify resources to carry us to a time when under our proper processes in the city, we then evaluate that as part of our budget process. Because otherwise we kind of start the examples of, this happens all the time in the city of reassessing and should we go outside of our budget process to make determinations about ongoing resources. So, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
If I may,
Councilmember.
so
There might be multiple things on that.
the first part is about how this works with an ongoing discussion. I do think that I solved that with the amended motion before you, because it does acknowledge that this is a recommendation that we suggest police department finance would make in their next budget cycle. So we aren't adding ongoing bodies here now. We're saying let's use some of the money that we still have left in what we've already allocated to start this and see how it goes. In regards to the backlog, I appreciate that. I think that with the current backlog, we could more than assume these two positions and just be in a better place with the records information unit without a body camera program. But I do think that as soon as we do begin this body camera program, I greatly anticipate that there will be additional requests, and it will be especially important that we do well by this police body camera program, both in terms of how this is one of our elements of work to change, to do the kinds of reform work that we've promised from the Minneapolis Police Department, and to do it very publicly. I also know that even if we assume that the state will act this year, as Deputy Chief Glampy said very appropriately, which likely they won't, and even if they choose to make all the information gathered by body-worn cameras private, which they likely won't, we still have this backlog, but we will still be getting quite a bit of new requests in, and that's been not yet scoped through our own pilot, but it has been witnessed through the development of other body camera pilot programs across the country, which Deputy Chief Glampy has been visiting and has been knowledgeable and has been part of that work effort. So I think it's more than reasonable to assume that we are going to need some additional resources in this unit to try to achieve that kind of public transparency and accountability that we're seeking, and to do a really good job by this body camera pilot off the bat.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do want to apologize to the author for not being available earlier to discuss this in the day. So I really like the intent of all of this, and so I do have some questions around it. Obviously, I'm a big open data proponent, data access person, and so I think to Councilmember Palmisano's point, this is so important that we get this right off the bat, that we're responding quickly, because I know in some cases we're not timely whatsoever, and it has a bad perception and bad outcomes for those looking for data. But from my talking with the chief previously about different allocations of positions, isn't that already something within her authority, or isn't she able to kind of do that as needed? And is there an issue here around the total number of allocations for the department? Is that part of this, that we would need more allocated FTE for the department overall? So then within that, she would be able to allocate as needed for this public data request?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to
Ms. McPherson.
Mr. Chair, council members, thank you. We have a number of FTEs that are assigned to us. In the police department, we use bell-shaped curve staffing, but I will tell you right now we have virtually very few open positions that we would be able to reallocate the number of FTEs. I believe I understand what Councilmember Palmisano is saying, is that based on our estimated costs, we're going to be coming under budget for what we have for, correct me if I'm wrong, but under budget for what we have in the budget for the $1.8 million for the year. And so my understanding is taking that amount that we're under budget, which is approximately $150,000, and allocating 2 new FTEs for these positions. So we have in this budget the funds to do that. Okay, what we don't have is, and I'll let DC Glampy answer whether we need them or not, but what we would need is some direction that said, yes, the council approves the additional 2 FTEs in and beyond our current budgeted FTE count in order to make those hires.
I appreciate that. That does make a lot of sense. And then I can see the need for something like that in this directive. I would maybe make a friendly suggestion to the author that we don't limit these positions to the body cam deployment, but just kind of leave it more open of increasing by 2 additional FTEs using existing resources. That way, the chief is able to adjust as needed as that workload may change. And then further, just more of an enterprise-wide comment. I hope, and I'm happy to work with staff on this, that we start focusing on outcome-based goals for Data Practice Act requests rather than tying to a specific number of FTE. That way it's more flexible so that we say we want to answer 95% of our requests within 14 days. And so that we have a goal like that coming in the door or something like our body cam footage. And then if we're not meeting that threshold, the chief can quickly and under the authority granted within a council-approved goal like that, ramp up resources as needed to be able to meet that goal. So I'll just throw that out there as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, council members, may I just a point of clarification? And I'm going to say something that Ms. Christensen usually says. One of the things we have to remember is that if there is an additional 2 FTEs that are assigned or that are approved, then these, of course, go on for future years. So right now, we're anticipating the next 4 years' cost of $1.2 million, which is what we've been saying. That would not include that we would have to adjust that then for the additional FTEs. And if DC Glampy wants to answer the second part of the question regarding needs.
Mr. Chair and council members, I can tell you, I confirmed this morning, last year, I believe we were right around 75,000 to 80,000 data requests just for the police department. Now, granted, some of those are simple. You show up and say, I'd like my police report or my accident report. Those are relatively simple things, matter of seconds, you walk out the door. A lot of them are much more complex. Give me all the data related to this incident, and you have body cams, squad video, street cams, license plate readers, police reports. It gets very voluminous. So to go from 75 to 80,000 in 2014, we are going to, when the final numbers come in, approach 150,000 data requests to the police department for 2015. That is a tremendous number. I mean, and talking to Christian earlier today, and I understand Councilmember Palmisano that, we looked at that 400%. It doubled and then doubled again. So 2 FTEs, even before body cameras get here, I could more than use those in a capacity in my records unit to be more efficient, which Councilmember Johnson, I agree with you 100%. To get this data out in a timely manner is so important and would certainly go a long ways to doing that. So I'm not going to turn down or tell you that we wouldn't be able to use those bodies. We certainly would, and we would do it very efficiently. It's not like we would be, people would be sitting on their hands. There is more than enough work for those bodies before we even start looking at body cameras.
Sir, thank you.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll echo some of the questions and concerns that the other council members have raised. We literally just adopted our budget 2 months ago. And so the place, in my opinion, to add FTEs for capacity for existing work would have been 2 months ago during that budget process so that we could equally, at the same time that we're adding bodies to a place that we have needs, understand what the ramifications might be for other departments, maybe sworn officers who wouldn't be hired or whatever, or a property tax levy increase, however it would be that we would pay for those additional bodies. And that's what I'm not hearing still. I understand that we have some savings in this year's budget, but when we start to add ongoing FTEs, that doesn't really matter. What matters is the ongoing balance of our budget over time. And so I still don't have an answer, I don't think. Maybe it's to Ms. Christensen or someone that what would be a funding source for ongoing FTEs for these positions? Would it be cuts in other places of the police department or cuts in other parts of the city enterprise, or how would we be covering that over time?
And Mr. Chair and Councilmember Bender, at this time, I would just say this is not a request of the police departments. So I want to be very clear that this would be something that we would certainly accept and make good use of, but we are not coming forward. So as far as our funding source, we're not prepared to do that today because this is not something we're asking for. So I don't know if Robin, if you have anything, but that's kind of our position on it right now.
Just maybe since we seem to be kind of conflating potentially, current needs related to data requests, which I understand are increasing. It sounds like we need to do some thinking about that for the long term. But with the body camera issue, which is ostensibly what we were talking about today, but so we've finished a pilot. I'm not on the Public Safety Committee, so I'm probably not as up to speed as some of my colleagues, but have we assessed through that pilot how many additional hours came in through requests for body camera, or do we have a prediction for why we would need 2 more FTE specifically for body cameras based on the pilot program?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Bender. So we created approximately 30,000 videos in our pilot project, and we did get a give us all your body camera video request. The best context I can put it in is if 6 police officers show up in an incident that's 10 minutes long, that's 60 minutes worth of body camera video. 60 times 10, or 6 times 10, that is 1 hour of video somebody has to watch from beginning to end for that one incident. And considering we do, close to 500,000 calls a year, we're not certain what we're going to get in the end when we go, full everybody with body cameras. So we are trying to be very responsible in adding those original 2 people to kind of start our whole program, not just the pilot, but the whole program. And that's based on what we learned in the pilot project and what a slow, tedious process it is. And that's before you even have to start doing any redacting. That's why our thought was, let's get into this, come back next year when we have to identify for you, where are we going to get this money? If we come to you and say, we need 40 people, well, it's our responsibility then to tell you, this is where we need the money. If we don't need those people, we didn't want to be in a position to come back and go, wow, we really overshot it. Now we got to get rid of some people, or we're not spending our money responsibly. So the goal is to get into this and come back next year to answer that very question and to, as accurately as possible, tell you this is exactly how many people we need going forward to 17, 18, and, however long into the future.
And maybe just, sorry, one final question was, 6 months from now, say we are into the body camera program and you find you need staff, we have mechanisms in place for the department to hire staff as needed in the middle of budget cycles. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Council Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, kind of big picture wise, I want to say that my understanding is that while the police department may have one of the most severe issues, I actually don't know. Maybe this is wrong for me to say, but just knowing how many data practices requests that you get and how many more that you may get through the body camera program, you may be one of the departments that is facing the greatest resource needs around data practices, but this is not the only place in the city where we have challenges meeting data practices requests on a timely basis or up to the standards that we would like to be. And I want to thank Sandy Christensen, who just forwarded me a reminder that there were 6 requests from departments enterprise-wide requesting, as part of last year's budget, additional resources for handling data practices requests. So we know that departments themselves are identifying these issues. I still feel a little challenged by the fact that this is outside of our budget process, as well as I'm still struggling with this language on the body cameras when it seems like what we've heard from the clerk's office and other places is that we have backups and they don't relate to the body cameras, even though we may, in fact, not have enough resources with 2 additional people for body cameras. We still have yet to assess that once the program gets underway. So I have a suggestion for modifying this staff direction, and so I'll just say it's, from my perspective, something that would allow me to support it, because I really do honestly support this very important issue that Councilmember Palmisano is bringing up, and I don't want to lose sight of that. And there may need to be some additional direction too, unless this is already happening, with asking someone from the city to kind of convene more of an enterprise-wide group to better assess our data practices needs and kind of fold that into talking to the mayor's office about next year's budget. So we are doing a better job in really getting a handle on these issues. This is kind of one of these internal services issues that often gets kind of shoved under the rug until you realize, wow, we have really not done something the way that we need to or we want to. So this is my suggestion on amending this staff direction. I would keep paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. I would eliminate paragraph 4, and I would change paragraph 5 to read as follows: direct Minneapolis Police Department finance staff to develop a budget recommendation regarding ongoing costs for the purposes of managing and responding to public data requests. That, in my mind, gives the department the direction that we want to see this kind of request come forward, but you have the flexibility to assess and determine what is the need that's there. And again, it seems like the need is relating more than to body cameras, so I was a little concerned about limiting the direction just to that when we have heard about other issues. And then I will say just again, Councilmember Palmisano, since you're very tapped into this issue, it seems like we also need an enterprise-wide approach to what is the budget request here. So I will go ahead and move that. I'll go ahead and move that amendment.
Thank you.
Can you repeat? I know they changed the 5, but the fourth part, is it deleting the fourth part?
Right, so I recommended deleting that 4th paragraph. I agree with Councilmember Johnson and with finance staff that I think the chief today, working with her finance staff, would be able to identify a way to fit mid-year needs for that department without a specific direction. So I, again, kind of am concerned to put a direction in there that, again, gets ahead of the budget process. But I think, frankly, this conversation is probably a big signal to police department administration staff that we are concerned about this issue. We want to make sure that they're doing their best job to watch this issue too, and that we think this is an important function of the city responding to these data practices requests.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there have been a lot of questions posed kind of at me, and then we've amended this motion, and I'm comfortable with that. I want to say this, that I expressed significant concerns about this program last year through the budget process. Those may have not been out in public quite so much, but we did have very specific recommendations from our internal audit report. One has to do with video redactions, and that was taken up by our mayor and proposed, and we all passed that. The part that wasn't was the public data request aspect of it. There were 0 additional resources called out in terms of having this back-end process, and Ms. McPherson is correct. I was referring to it's 128,000. She said approximately 150,000 that is expected to be remaining in this previous budget allocation this year. To me, this is about administration of a program, and to me, this is about our city council saying, along with this body camera investment, that we acknowledge and we want to make the most public, transparent process with body cameras that we can. It's not just about cameras, and we all understand and appreciate that. I do know that it will be coming soon. The records management audit report and the city clerk's response to that is coming in a future committee of the whole. So don't worry, from an enterprise perspective, we are about to really get a handle on this from that enterprise-wide side of things. Also, last week, I do want to point out that I have some philosophical differences, I think, than Councilmember Johnson in terms of who should be the person making the decisions on this. I don't think that the best, highest use of our body camera program should be part of internal affairs. That is the internal facing side of a body camera program, but to build something where requests can be triaged, I don't think that our own police department should triage requests. It's not that they're not capable of doing so, but I think the best way to hold the public trust in how we process ongoing and increasing amount of public data requests would actually be more like in the city clerk's office that I had mentioned last week. So I do appreciate the need for us to look at the data governance perspective of all of this and to manage it through the right channels as an enterprise. And I suggested this change because it is really about how we support and put resources behind the public trust end of the body camera program. So I am comfortable with the Council Vice President's suggestion on this motion as it's written. I do hope that that extra projected money that we've already budgeted for will be used to support and to fund and to add resources to our records information unit. And yeah, so I just wanted to respond to those requests.
Comfortable with that? Thank you. Let's thank you for the work. First of all, it did air up. It was just a routine item here, contract with Taser, $4 million. It's good we had a discussion on some other stuff, but obviously it's a big deal, and so it did take up an opportunity here that we did not let get past. So thank you for your work on that. Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to belabor this, but I think it's important to remember that there were a significant amount of budget requests from departments last year that were not funded because we don't have the funding available to support them. And so each of these decisions is a matter of policy priorities that we make through the budget process. So it may very well be, again, that in the future we choose to either raise property taxes or cut other important services in order to better respond to public requests. And I think public data availability is extremely important. But that's the real conversation. That's the question in front of us. Not is this important, but how is it funded and how does it fit in with all the other city priorities?
Exactly correct. Thank you. Okay. On the amended staff direction, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And on the underlying motion, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 And so that item passes. Thank you very much, everyone. I think that concludes our business for the day. So we stand adjourned.